I saw just the brilliance of nature. And when I looked at the weather today and recognized what St. Kitts looked like, it looked as if it was just a stone's throw away. And I want our people to really learn to appreciate what we have here. This little dot, the crystal waters of the Caribbean. It's just a beautiful place. And if we do not understand what we have, maybe take a trip outside where you cannot see very far and then come back home and you can see the beautiful islands of St. Kitts and Nevis. It was just a beautiful day and it showed up the beauty of these two little islands. Webo, I must touch on the earthquake in Jamaica. And I hope for some reason that it wouldn't reach us here. I could remember back in the 50s when we were getting continuous earthquakes. And one thing my mother kept saying, Lord have mercy upon us. We were in our little house and everybody felt the earthquakes during that period. But based on what we are hearing, it is very likely that it will be coming our way soon. At least I hope not, but God is in the midst. Webo.
Conrad Nye Liburd, Ted Hobson, the Honorable Spencer Brand, Edric W. Stanley. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and 1700. Brand, you wanted to go with some first.
Yes, Webo, thank you. Webo, recently a group of Nevisians left Nevis to travel overseas for a very auspicious occasion. And one member of that delegation traveled on a passport that was issued in 2013. We would recall, Webo, that in that period, the place of birth were removed from the passport issued around that time period. It so happened that on entering the territory where the journey would have taken them, this particular individual was told that this passport was a stolen passport, and as a result he was not allowed to enter into the country. The individual, Webo, had a very uncomfortable evening and was scheduled to be deported back to from whence they came. It so happened that, Webo, the individual were able to reach out to some authorities back here in the Federation, and the matter was able to be sorted. I want to say to our people, Webo, that persons who are still in possession of these passports issued in that time frame without the place of birth, that they too can get themselves into some difficulty if they choose to travel on those passports. I would also recall, Webo, that the federal government would have recalled these passports, and I want to encourage our people who are still in possession of these passports to have them renewed, because this was an incident that clearly, perhaps no fault of the individual, but they would have traveled on this passport, a passport that appeared to on the other side was told that was stolen, and the individual got into some difficulty. So I want to appeal to our people who are still in possession of these passports, and this is a passport. I have seen the document page myself. It's a passport that, according to the information therein, supposed to be expired in 2023. And I want to suggest to our people again, Webo, if they are in possession of these passports, that they should go in and have these passports cancelled and renewed, so that they themselves can be not find themselves in those kind of difficulty. I just want to encourage our people to take note, if they do have these passports in their possession still, that they need to get them changed and do so, because they might end up in a situation where they may not be as fortunate to reach out to someone. They might be in a country or in a place where they may not be able to have that communication back home. So I just want to encourage our people to take stock of that.
The passports are those that did not have the place of birth,
Right.
which was in the period of 2000 and 12, 13,
Yeah,
15?
Yes, yes, around there.
around that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the person got arrested because he was accused of a stolen passport.
Yes, Weber.
Okay. You mentioned through no fault of his, right? But it actually was a fault of his because persons need to be aware and therefore do what is necessary. I would think that you perhaps meant perhaps you did not intentionally do it.
Well, yes, Weber. I think perhaps
I
my
didn't have
language of no fault.
and didn't have a criminal intent in mind.
No,
but
not at all. Not at all.
Apart from that, Webo, and a lot of people, I'm sure, still have those passports. Not everybody listen to radio and television and know, that the government was forced to recall them. And so there are a lot of people, not only here but around the world, who had those passports and are still in the possession. And I think the call from the minister is a very timely one, and I do hope that a lot of people are listening to this program, and those of you who have those passports, because I suppose it was meant, of course, to fool the border, so that the people who got these citizen by investment passports, their birth wasn't shown up on the passport, and it was a smart move, clever move.
The place of
a
birth or
tricky
the
move.
birth? The place of birth or the birth?
Place of
Place of birth. It was a tricky move because what the passport was saying, to the border officials where you land, the immigration authorities, was that, look, don't worry about this person where he's from. The fact is he has a passport from the St. Kitts Nevis. But it was an anomaly because, one wants to know a lot about you when you come to another country. Especially now, with all the security problems and so forth. They want to know whence you came,
But Ted, part of that issue that Mr. Brand brought to the fore, though, is that the system failed because the person should have not been able to exit the Federation with that
Absolutely.
passport.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the system did fail, right?
Yes.
Interesting, Weber, because I think I'm the holder of one of those passports.
Did you travel since on it?
Yes, I did.
And you got away?
I got a visa.
people got
I've
away.
got a visa in the particular
Yeah.
passport.
Let me just take this. Good evening. Okay, please call back, caller. Go ahead, Naya.
And I got a visa in that particular passport. The passport ends this year, and the visa is still valid and all that. One must understand that a lot of people in Nevis, we travel. Nevisians does travel, and when American embassy would stamp you a visa in such passport, or Canadian embassy,
You got the visa stamping it after the recall?
yes, 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I traveled on it. No, you guys get me a bit worried now. But should I not take the chance again? But I mean, why should we suffer such inconvenience?
Why not? Because you got the benefit of the monies,
We don't get no benefit.
What
or
do you
no
mean
money,
you don't
Weber.
get the benefit? Now, be realistic.
Who get the money? The
We,
benefit?
I mean, when I said you, of course I don't mean you personal,
Yeah.
but I mean the country. You're a citizen of it, right?
We got, well, they say they get some money. The people on the street don't even know if they really get money for true. But
But the people on the street know that use certain facilities that the country provide, the airport.
But this
et
is
cetera, et
interesting,
cetera,
you
et
know,
cetera.
Webo. Since we're talking
Okay,
about
let,
that.
Let me just take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Good evening.
I was calling that Mr. Herbert, thank you for clearing up the situation. What I'm saying is that this is the fault of immigration, because some people don't even look at their passports when they're traveling. So that person should have never been allowed to leave the island. So we have to tighten up on the immigration. Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, all right, thank you. Yes, now continue.
Yes, interesting, Webo. I mean, it's quite puzzling because yes, the immigration maybe should not let you, but it's a valid passport.
It's not a valid passport.
It have not been said that these passport.
That's what we call.
It was said. How did I know to get rid of the one that I had and get a new one? It is. So the now, work with me now.
I will work with you from now on.
Because work with me pays, right? So it is not a valid passport at this point in time.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Brand, might I go to you to make your appeal again to folks? With those
Well,
passports?
yes, Webo. The point is that there are still persons who are in possession of these passports that were issued in that time frame 2010, 12, 13 that does not have the place of birth inside of them. Like I said earlier, Webo, these passports were recalled, and some persons, one reason or the other, oversight, may not have taken the time to have their passport redone. And this is just one incident where the system would have someone would have got caught in the system. I want to encourage our people who are in possession of those passports, including Naya, to sort that out, because we don't want that if you are traveling somewhere in some far lands and you're stuck in the system. I really want to encourage our people to have that matter sorted out.
Ted, how the thing goes, ignorance of the law?
It's no excuse.
It's no excuse.
Okay.
But Webo, it is interesting though, because when the matter was going on, was a major matter. I think a lot of members of the public, some members of the public, think that the recall was mostly aimed towards those who have got their passport through the citizen by investment.
But if you misinterpret Naya,
I did because I had no problem. I travel in and out with the same passport. But whether you ask me if we get the benefit,
yes,
Nigerians never really get the benefit comparing to our sisters and brothers across the water.
That's true.
Because I went across there the other day, and Webo, honestly, we are such distant behind St. Kitts in terms of economic development. There's something that happened that Nevis totally got missed out of. That in this federation, and it's highly evident in St. Kitts. So I was told that a lot of the investment in St. Kitts was accompanied by or partnership by money from the citizens, by investment, and that's why St. Kitts is blooming that way, and that's why I can say to you, I'm not sure if we got our full share. I don't even think we get.
Well, it's only recently
we've been getting something, and Stanley been talking about the roads all the time. But we need more. No, I don't feel happy. I feel cheated when I go to St. Kitts and see what's happening in St. Kitts. I'm wondering what's going on here.
But see, I suppose.
And most people share this opinion, Webo.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and if you don't, I think you're falsifying the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opening remarks, I say, let's face reality. Let's look it straight in his face. Because there were times when how much development can we expect? It cannot be assessed, but we can look at it in relative terms. We can look at our sister islands. We can look at other islands in the region, and I think we are lagging behind in a major way. Sorry to say, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but better must come for Nevis. We just got to ensure that. I think Nevis need undivided attention, and I don't think he's getting that.
Stanley, you wanted to get in.
Yes, well, we have to be very careful when we begin to compare. And if we don't make what we call a complete comparison, then we would be, in fact, falsifying or disseminating information that may not be correct. Let's look at another jurisdiction. St. Thomas, St. Croix. Well, let's not bring in St. John. But because of the political structure, St. Thomas became the focus of more or less like the capital of the Virgin Islands. St. Thomas is a smaller island as compared to St. Croix. But the emphasis was placed on St. Thomas as a tourist destination. And in that regard, the governor who lived in St. Thomas at that time, Paiwanski,
Still does.
pushed St. Thomas, and the major investors with reference to hotels saw St. Thomas as a place where they would invest their money. And as a result, St. Thomas boomed. St. Croix, 2.5 times the size of St. Thomas, was its structure politically and economically was different with reference to the industrial aspect of development, where Mark Marietta got in, Hess got in. Now in Nevis, nothing happens before its time.
Who got in?
And this is a diamond in the rough. And a lot of people just don't see it, can't see it, and probably never will. But in due course, like Will Rogers say, buy land because they're not making any more of it. And as a result, the time will come when Nevis is going to get its fullest share, and it will be the envy of St. Kitts. What arrangement we have, our people, they've got to demand our share. We are getting some from the community government, and based on what we are getting currently, we can see a massive transformation of Nevis.
Let me take this, Mr. Stanley. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. The Premier needs to go back and revisit that Charleston Accord. That is what mash us up this time with the unity, the Charleston Accord. Have a good evening.
Okay, Mr. Stanley, finish up.
So in that regard, the people, when they come, they eye the two islands, just as we as men or women would see someone with whom they want to team up with. And as a result, this is a game of investors choosing a destination. St. Kitts currently, but there would be time, the time will come when Nevis is going to get its share of investors, and it will be the envy of the eye, looking from it from a St. Kitts perspective.
Okay. The time actually has come in terms of your argument, because if my people was fleet-footed as the people in CNN and those other things with the impeachment trial going on, I'll ask them quickly to pull up for me a debate and a statement that you made, an argument you made a few years ago. When I used that same example of that another jurisdiction, whereby you got a political arrangement, St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John, St. Thomas being the capital, but yet not the biggest. And you were using the argument. And then I said to you, remember, that maybe what we should do, perhaps one argument is, that going forward, we decide to put the investments now, most of the investments in Nevis, because it's pristine and all that. And as a consequence, it may well become the capital. You said no. Remember that?
I don't remember my saying no.
I figured. Oh, what you remember saying?
I
But
don't
you remember
remember-
the debate.
Well, let's go back to
Do you remember the debate?
very vaguely, Weber.
Okay. And very vaguely, what you thought you would have said.
Well, when I say very vaguely, the debate based on what you brought to the fore, but in terms of
and very vaguely based on
Specifics, I don't remember.
work with me. Based on the information given now, how would you evaluate it?
I can go back in history and say Nevis ran these islands in the past.
The question I ask you is this.
And therefore,
Based on the information that I gave, as was representing the debate that we had then, how would you react now?
I said earlier, nothing happens before it's time.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Good evening. You're on the air.
Pleasant good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
And we having the lady tonight?
No, she's not in tonight.
Oh, she's not in tonight. Oh, my. That is so sad. Well, gentlemen, this is Carl Brown from Sinkit and from Fountain Village. We hear what is happening here tonight, gentlemen. Well, I agree with you all that Nevis may not get in the full share of what belongs to them. But we all can agree that Nevis is getting the best share in the last 25 and more years. Gentlemen, are we agreeing on that?
I would agree on that, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Weber. Well, let me hear the rest of the panel because this is the best year Nevis getting in the last 25 years. Gentlemen on the panel?
Well, I've said that Nevis has been transformed. And
Nevis has been transformed in the last 5 years.
Into what?
Because this is the best year and the best
Well,
thing
caller,
that
let me
Transform
ask-
from what to what,
Nevis-
caller? Transform from what to what? You mean we have more roads?
Listen.
Transform from what to what? What
happening in
indicator do you
Nevis?
have that Nevis has,
Okay,
has
why
transformed?
don't we do this? Caller,
hear Webber.
caller, allow Mr. Nair to address you, and then I'll ask him to yield and you address
Yes,
him.
and I have something else to
I just want-
debate because
Caller,
I just want to
okay,
say,
but let's
Webber,
do this. Let's do this. Caller,
Yes.
go ahead. Now ask the
the
question.
transformation must be exposed. The transformation must be felt, and this word is being overused and abused about transformation. We have gotten roads, and I always say, as a child grows, you got to facilitate him with new clothes, and of course, and that to me is just natural that we expand our network of road, and of course, you know, the network of road is as such. Nevis is in anticipation. There's so many, the caller is there still, but there's so many people who have invested and just waiting for the boom to come.
Okay, but Nair,
Yeah,
the
I'm just
caller,
gonna do it.
work with me. You wanted to ask the caller a question. What is
Yes.
the question?
yes, ask
What's
me a
the
question.
point to the
Because
transformation,
I have other things
please?
to tell him what is happening in Nevis, you know.
Okay, caller, go ahead.
Listen here.
Okay, that's caller. You can call back. Okay, now you wanted to finish up with another point or something.
Not really,
Okay,
Webber.
all right.
No.
Brand, you want to get
Yeah,
in?
well, I share the view with Naya to some extent that Nevis are probably not getting the full share of what they ought to be getting. But I would hasten to add, Weber, that we are also receiving a lot more than we would have received in the past. Last year, for example, the Nevis Island administration would have received, I think it was $30 million portion as part of the CBI proceeds. That figure, Weber, is slated to go up to $45 million this year. And I think that some of the projects that we have seen taking place in Nevis over the last 4 or 5 years can speak about the hospital project. Newcastle Police Station, the Finger Pier, the Treasury, the Mondo track, the new generator at the power plant. These are projects that came to Nevis because of
Significant progress.
the relationship that we've had with the federal government. It would have meant, Weber, that the island of Nevis and the people of Nevis would have had to incur debt to have those projects on the ground. Where I think that we are not seeing, and I think that the kind of development that perhaps Naya and others are speaking about, I think that we often speak about the large hotels, and I believe that many of us in Nevis are frustrated because, and from where I sit, Webo, in the last 2 years, we have seen a lot of things comes across our desk of things that should be happening, and they just fizzle out by the wayside. And I think that that has been the frustration of successive governments, NRP and CCM. For some reason, there seems not to be the execution of these many projects that come by investors that say they want to have done on the island of Nevis. And this cabinet and this government have taken a very serious stand as it regards to this. We are saying to these developers, look, we don't want to waste your time, and we hope that you are not wasting our time. We are giving you a very limited time frame in which to execute these projects, and if they are not executed within a certain time, we are going to part ways, no hard feelings, move on, we are going to go to somebody. And I think that that has been the frustration for Nevis and Nevisians, where on the island of St. Kitts, some of these projects keep popping up here and there, where the economy, so to speak, on the island of St. Kitts have seen that, and I believe that perhaps maybe that's the kind of transformation that Naya and others are hoping and craving for, and of course the government as well, because it certainly would have that multiplying effect. It would create jobs, it would create additional revenue into the treasury, and it would give, of course, the government and the island that wider cash base for other developments. But there are some improvements as it regards to what we are getting. It is not perfect. I would admit that it is not perfect. And we are, in my mind, still not at that level where I feel and where this government feel that it ought to be. But we are making step by step, and we are doing it strategically and over time, and we hope that we will get to where we want to be.
Well, it was useful, you know, that some a caller referred to the Charleston Accord. It was useful that we had that document, because, you know, every now and then I look at the document and realize that we have not achieved all of the benefits that were set out in that accord. We have received some, but most of it we have not received. But until about 1.5 years ago, I was a member of one of those very, very important institutions in St. Kitts, where I had a good view of what is happening in St. Kitts. And what is really happening in St. Kitts, nearly every project you hear about, every one of them, were financed by the Citizen by Investment Program and the National Bank. That is where the institution reside. And so when people come, as they come here as well, with ideas for development, hotel and all that, they were in a position to say, yes, we can help you, because they control it. It isn't that people came in St. Kitts and with a busload or boatload of money. Nearly every one of them was financed from the Citizen by Investment Program and the National Bank. Insofar, the same effort has been made over here, the same inquiries have been made over here. But we weren't in a position to satisfy these people that we could partly finance this project. And so they fizzle out. In St. Kitts, they control those institutions that could help. And that's why you have all of these hotels you see going up and so forth. Some of them are stalled because I mean, they can't find the rest of the money. And it has left both those institutions in a serious financial problem. But let not people try and compare the two, because it can't be compared. We unfortunately haven't got the control of those resources, and that is really the basic reason why you see Nevis has not done as well as it ought to have done, and not anywhere near as well as Sinkis has done. They control it.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. I want to ask the panelists, every single one of you, where do we draw the line of equability? Where is it going to be equal? Are we going to consider population or land size? What is it that we are looking for? Well, as Naya suggested, we're not getting our fair share. Why? Is it because of land size, population size, economics?
Call it is because of the will. It's the will. I mean, you have we have what? We have 2 members of the cabinet here.
2?
Yeah, we have 2.
Okay.
We have the minister Brantley. We have the minister Banzi. But they have 6 or 7 more, and so it's uneven. It's not the same. It's not the same thing, and that is the reason why. As I said, the Charleston Accord set out what you're supposed to, and it was based on people. It was based on population.
Well, okay, that's what I asked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I understand that. But then if we are going to always be going on that road, the same equation will apply every time.
Because it shouldn't be based on no population at this point in time. It should be based on the level of development.
I agree.
Okay.
Nevis have to come up, and therefore we should be given that extra incentive. You know, these accords. You know, I mean, how obligatory are they in terms of having legal force? You can write some things on the paper, and then people just, you know, that doesn't obviously.
What we need to do is
Okay,
to get we need to get is the 3 seats this time.
Ted, let me get this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, Mr. Hobson. I'm glad you touched the cause for a card too. But Mr. Hobson, remember, the Premier said he was going to sink it with the Accord when you left and you cannot get what you want. What you do? If you are troubling girl and I take you and you still trouble the girl, so if you're going to sink it and you not get what you want, left them and come back. They need you. They need you. They need us. And if we can't get what we want, we just left them. We're going to get you on our own. We're going to get you on our own. And I heard the Premier said on the radio the last Wednesday in December that he is going to revisit the Accord. And if he didn't take it up when he was going down, we would not be here saying all of these here tonight. I want to know when they go think it, if they just inject them and change them or forward this plan will go down the way. That Accord need to revisit. And you, Mr. Hobson, I kind of blame you too, because you know more than them. And you're supposed to go and work in the office and sit down with them and tell them what is it, because you know the politics more than anybody else.
It's a touchy area, Webo, because, you know, even though a lot of things have been spoken under the hands, you know, the public is feeling it. The people are concerned. The people are realizing that, you know, we doesn't have the economic mobility that we would like to have, really. This population thing, I'm not sure. But, you know, Webo, some people are happy when Mr. Hobson, you know, spoke to the fact that, you know, it's all about the SIDF funds and all that. But, you know, Webo, I am not happy and I'm not comforted at all. I'm not pacified, because I grew up in a political home, and from then on, they always blame Sinkits. They always blame Sinkits. They've been blaming Sinkits for generations. What happened to the political machinery in Nevis? Yes, it's an administration, yes, but they collect tax and everything else. Isn't it something lacking that probably we probably have not applied our minds to? Creative thoughts? Whatever, I don't know. But too long we've been blaming St. Kitts. And on one or two occasions, we find ourselves in a very favorable position. You know, just as the call have said, you know, the Accord should probably be really benefiting us a lot more, because they needed us. There is something wrong. I no longer want to hear about blaming St. Kitts about what's going on in Nevis, because we have some things over here we got to sort out amongst ourselves. You know, this little attitude, because I recently been talking to some people, and I asked 10 people, with what we see is happening here in Nevis amongst our own people and our attitude towards our own people, do you really think that we could have gone into independence and so? And all of them say no. And I was so shocked and depressed when I hear that, because we no longer trust ourselves, even though we have not even give ourselves the opportunity to be trusted. You know, bad situation as far as check for, you know, from a Nevis point of view, because we are politically unhappy with the arrangement, because what we see is happening, it is not at all encouraging, because nothing is happening. You know, there are people on the other side, and I call them political mercenaries, because they would always say Nevis is doing good. One of them called in one night and said, she come Nevis on a Sunday morning, and Charleston is busty. And I'm saying, well, I drive to Charleston every Sunday morning, drop my mom to church, I ain't supposed to go on. And I have to say, she must be a political mercenary, because...
Okay, Niall, just let me get this, I'll get back to you. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, you're on the air.
Hi, this one is for Mr. Hapson. Mr. Hapson, tell me why all the taxes, all around and all of them, everybody pay the tax over in St. Kitts. And they are over here benefiting us, and they're taking us, money we're spending in here, and everything being paid over there. Everything being paid over there. Give me the answer that said.
Naya,
The lady says she works in statistics and she was a statistician, and the minute we hear that, everybody decided to seem like everybody's thought became diluted. But to me, because I made that point, that in the last 30 years, there have not been any major economic impact on Nevis, and that's what we're on about. That's what the people are asking for. We're not asking for a big hotel, because if they can't come, they can't come. Whatever, we need an economic injection. And we think our elected representative have failed us in that respect, because it's not happening. It's not happening. It's been too long now. The last hotel was Four Seasons 30 years ago. And what we experienced 30 years ago, 29 years ago, the same thing we experience today. The hotel closed and the island shut down. We got to talk to the banks. You know, people can't pay this. We need better. And sometimes I feel very much isolated in asking for better. And Nevisians deserve better. It's simply that. It's simply that. I mean, I wouldn't go into the details in terms of what I think can be done at times to at least save some money. I think the politicians then work for too much money to start with.
How much money do you think we're working for?
I have an idea and it's too much.
No. I'm curious to know how much money you think we're working for.
Let me ask
me how
this.
much you guys deserve.
Let me ask this. Do you think it will make a difference in the way we debate? What I mean by that is this. When we started out with Mr. Brand. Mr. Brand put an issue on the table. And we began to discuss it and began to give different views and opinions and so on about it. And I decided to pull back the discussion to the facts. And it seemed to have taken a different turn. So the question I'm asking is, with a lot of other issues, do you think the way we debate them can make a difference? And is it important to debate them in a manner such that we are honest, truthful? After all, we're trying to get results.
I agree with you, Webo. There are times we drift away. There were times, sometimes, if you really nail into a subject matter, you probably can come up with more. But in this discussions, sometimes we drift away.
But by the way, Naya, just let me interject. When I said we, I am not limited it to the people in the room. I'm speaking to we as a people, including the way the politicians or leaders them operate as well, because most of the times they don't talk with us, they talk at us. And sometimes it's helpful if they were able to get some good probing from some person or persons who have that skill. And the country and all of us might be better off for that. That's the reason why I asked the question.
Well, let me just hone in on the debate that we are having regarding the development of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have to become cognizant of the fact that global things are beginning to impact us somewhat adversely. The movement of capital, especially from the US, even from Europe, poses a problem because as soon as you begin to move a certain level of capital, it sends up a red flag. And consequently, some people who would have easily moved to St. Kitts or Nevis, as the case might be, maybe $20 million. But because of FATCA rule and the tightening of these aspects, not only in the United States, but in Europe, though that level of investment that we are looking for, it doesn't come easily anymore.
But let me ask you this, in the interest of time. It doesn't come easily anymore. It used to come easily then.
Easier.
Well, why are we at this stage of development then?
We are at this stage.
Why were we not booming when it was coming easier?
You have to have a barometer by which you measure.
You have to have a barometer.
And by what I mean is that we had development, the 4 seasons. We have had internal development, and not only governmental projects are happening.
So your answer is that we did have that boom.
I am not saying we had a boom.
So
but based on the
that is what I was talking about earlier when I asked the question about the way we debate, because the rather than just giving pointers and talking and it not being challenged and we see and stuff like that, because if we just keep talking and the ideas or whatever we're putting on are not challenged and they're actually weak and just a lot of noise, that's some of the reason why the things fail.
I could understand that, but what I'm honing in on is that there are people out there, even some of our people from St. Kitts Nevis, who would like to move certain level of capital back to their homeland. They can't do it anymore. It's not easy to be done anymore.
That is a fact. That is a fact.
And therefore, it has an adverse
impact. But what I'm saying is,
on the level
that is a fact. I
and
accept
the
that.
frequency.
I accept that is a fact. However, you admit that there was a time when it wasn't that difficult. It was easy, but I did not see the boom. So I'm putting it to you that you must not use that as the reason. Ted, how am I doing?
People have
made on his back foot.
Money, investments in St. Kitts Nevis based on, I don't want to call names, but we knew people moved a certain level of capital.
I don't think I got you.
No,
I
you
don't think-
can't, because I'm not convinced.
No, what I meant was, I don't think that you will. I think you will still continue on the same point, and we wouldn't get anywhere. So let's go on to something else.
Well, I want to galvanize my point.
Yeah.
All right? I'm just saying to you, right now, the rule of the game when it comes to capital being moved cross borders, it has become far more difficult now than it was before. But when we look at
Okay,
the
well, let me
houses-
ask you this. Well, let me
houses,
ask you this.
private houses.
If you're providing that as a signature reason, do you have any empirical evidence to show that had the FATCA rule not been in place, we would have had a X, Y number of developments?
I cannot point to a factor right now.
But then,
But I could say this.
But then, as you judge Ted, he should be able to bring that in.
Let me bring a case in
and
point.
use that.
Let me
as,
bring a case in point.
Okay, let's do this, Mr. Brand.
Well, but the question that you are asking, Mr. Stanley, if, there is one particular development that I'm aware of that the developer did indicate that they were having, and they are still having challenges to move funds from the Asian side to St. Kitts and Nevis to do the development. So there is one particular entity that I am aware of that is facing that particular challenge.
How credible is that from the developer?
Well,
Because we also know that some people, as you have indicated so eloquently a few minutes ago, that the frustration is that sometimes you have these plans and these programs and these promises and they don't come true, right?
Yes.
Okay. So sometimes we do have proposals like these, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, currently, there are people who are from St. Kitts Nevis who would have easily moved $50,000 US from the US. But once it has landed here, it sends up a red flag. And consequently, those people become gun shy and no longer want to move in that level of capital into St. Kitts Nevis simply because of the FATCA rule.
So what's your point?
My point is just to say that it is no longer as easy as it used to be. But if you were to look at certain private...
The other day we had a case in the news with the former Prime Minister. He had... Well, let me not use that. When you travel, there's a customs declaration form, right? And it asks you if you're carrying X amount of cash, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Be honest.
This is a light moment. I just realized this, that the other day I observed that most of my conversations with Stanley, or whenever I hear him, is talking about, Ted, what is the topic?
Money.
And I said it was a light moment.
I was trained in that discipline.
I didn't say you were not trained, I just made an observation. Okay, right?
Well,
So when you fill out the form, Ted, if you have $5,000, you would say you do not have 10,000 or more, right?
yeah.
All right. On the contrary, if you have $25,000, you will declare it.
You're supposed to.
Right. And then they ask you a few questions.
Of course.
And you answer honestly.
Yeah.
And what would they do? Take away the money from you?
No.
Or they will tell you go on your way?
They just want to know.
Yes. But Mr. Stanley, I just brought that scenario by way of information. Continue with your argument.
Well, but you know that there are people who would, in fact, got 100,000 and they will tell you they don't have any. And as a result, once it is here, it's going to be utilized. And they would find ways to at least hide it. But you can't do it anymore. Because where are you going to keep it? If it's in cash,
I'm just not getting through to you. You don't understand. Help me, Mr. Brand, with the point that I just made in the scenario that I brought.
Well, I think that the point is to try and get the person who is moving the $100,000 to declare it, to say everything about it honestly, and then it should move through the system freely.
Yes, but those people who in the past still want to do what they did in the past now, and they can't.
Which is, for example, what?
Without declaration or partial declaration.
But
You see what I mean? That's another example of how we get ahead or how we succeed with things. Also have a lot to do with how we debate. Whether we debate the way they are debating now with the impeachment case, or whether we debate differently. You agree with that?
Yes, Webo, but I'm also telling you that there are people who, in fact, won't fill the declaration form. But there are added factors now because the banks never used to be in on it, but the banks are in on it to the extent where you fill the declaration form and you would have declared to the government authorities as to what you're carrying and in what volume. And you would have moved that into the bank without any question asked. But now, because the bank is a facilitator, you now have 2 tiers to answer questions, and you have to answer in the affirmative because the proof of the pudding is really in the depositing of that money. So you got two entities policing what you're carrying.
Mr. Stanley, in the interest of time, very briefly, what is your point?
My point is that we cannot do what we did in terms of investment and development at the level that we did in the past simply because of all these rules,
but still,
prohibiting factors.
Yet you make the argument that the development that we're doing now is much greater than what we did in the past. Did you make that argument?
We have to.
Do you not?
Them. We have to separate them. We
have don't understand.
We have government, and at the same time, when you look at
you just told me that we are moving leaps and bounds right now as far as development. Did you not?
I did.
Okay. Now you still make the argument that we are not being able to do the kind of development now that we have done in the past. Did you not?
You have to have a barometer, Webo, to measure.
Did you, Mr. Stanley, did you not?
I did say we are not, but at the same time, I am attempting to tell you that you have 2 factors.
I
you
think
have governmental factors,
we've been together so long that I know when I need to help you. This is Thought That Get Results. We'll be back right after these.
Doors and windows in galore of any description, shape, and size. Builders Paradise, they've got it. Types of doors include exterior aluminum doors, exterior metal doors, fiberglass exterior doors, security doors, 6-panel interior doors, bypass mirror doors, and bifold doors, just to name a few. They also have windows just for you, such as the ever-popular security windows, Miami shutters, single-hung PVC, and awning windows. Builders Paradise is the largest supplier of doors and windows in the Federation. So visit them today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site, St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938 so they can help you complete your home. Builders Paradise, where your island dreams begin.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Back in this episode of Thought That Get Results with Conrad Nye Liburd. Ted Hobson, Edric W. Stanley, the Honorable Spencer Brand. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and 1700. If you are listening by our transmission, you can also view the video stream of this program via YouTube. You can go to YouTube, click subscribe, go on our logo, click, and it'll be on live. Or you can follow us on our Facebook page, or you can go to www.vonradio.com and click live video. Edric, someone had mentioned something about, in reference to the earthquakes. There's some that we perhaps got to pay close attention to.
We must, because what's been happening in Puerto Rico, which is just maybe 200 miles west of us, and now it's happening in this southwestern portion in Jamaica. We are still within the same region, and in that regard, those of us, based on our location,
On the same fault line.
and on the same fault line, we have to really pay very pointed attention to what's happening, because most of the structures that are being built now are masonry. And in that regard, in the past we had wooden tenements, and they have withstood the test of time in terms of earthquakes. As I mentioned, in the early 50s, we were having a lot of earthquakes in Nevis. I could remember the mountain, Nevis Peak, a certain portion of it broke out that is facing us. The belfry at St. John Church went, and there were cracks, considerable cracks in certain structures in Nevis, masonry structures. So where we are now, we should be very, very vigilant with regard to earthquakes and how we can at least prepare ourselves for their destructive power, destructive force. What I understood, the one in Jamaica was some 7 point plus on the Richter scale.
That's pretty high.
And that is very, very high, which means that's a tremendous amount of force. The amount that occurred in Puerto Rico, we must pay special attention to the enormity of those that happened in Puerto Rico. So I would say where we are, we must again pay special attention just in case we are unfortunate to be part of that destructive force. We must take corrective action, begin to take corrective action, and be fully aware that when we hear it, we get out of most of the houses we are in, because they are no longer those little light wooden tenements. Webo.
Webber Stanley is right about that. I was a youngster in 1951 when we had those terrible earthquakes. I remember people didn't sleep in their house. They came out in the street. I could very well remember. In fact, it was thought that it was caused by people upsetting the Bath stream. There's a man called Barber, and he came and he dug up the bath and tried to stop people from bathing and so forth. And for some reason, our people thought it had something to do with that. But it was terrible. And a lot of the buildings were not only destroyed, but, all at the courthouse, the different places were damaged. So I think we have to be very, very concerned. And as Stanley says, most of the building now, in those days, they were mostly wooden. And so they survive. But nowadays, nearly every structure is masonry. So I think we have to be very, very careful and very, very vigilant.
Yes, sir. But this earthquake was of a significant magnitude, a 7.3 magnitude, and the magnitude of this earthquake could actually create. There was the warning or advisory of possibility of tsunami, and based on where this earthquake took place, there was that real possibility. But thank God it never materialized. I think that we continue to see the increase in the magnitude of these earthquakes in recent times in this particular region, and I am hoping and praying that, but like I said, this is a 7.3 magnitude, and based on what we are seeing in recent weeks and months, the magnitude of these earthquakes seem to be getting stronger and stronger and stronger. There is that possibility that certainly of more earthquake. We are hoping that the magnitude at which they may come may not be to this one. The depth of this was a significant depth, so we did not see that upper level movement of the body of water. So that was what kind of saved us based on that magnitude. I just want our people to be vigilant and pay attention to what is happening around them. I think it is just tomorrow, actually, there is a discussion there at the church there in Charlestown that deals with disaster management, is holding a panel discussion there. And the topic, of course, is earthquake. I think that as a people, I want to encourage many of our persons to try and attend that panel discussion. I think the aim is to try and make our people be more aware of what to do or what not to do during such an event, and if there is the eventuality of a tsunami. As we are all aware, Nevis would have been affected by tsunamis in the past, and based on our proximity to our coastline, it is a real danger for us. So I hope that our people can be as prepared as possible for any eventuality. I know that disaster management continue to undertake this training and these drills and try and get our people to be ready for any eventuality. But this size of earthquake was one to be very concerned about. 7.3 is a significant. I mean, in other parts of the world, 7.3 earthquake really is a major disaster. But like I said, we have been very fortunate not to have any significant effect of this particular from this particular earthquake throughout the region.
Well, I'll bring to the fore, I heard a clip on the radio regarding the cannabis industry in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, where the government has now given full support to license people who truly want to propel that industry upward and onward. And I need to use this opportunity to sensitize our government that we must get on the bandwagon for medical purposes and even send people out to find out who might be interested in becoming entrepreneurs in this industry. There are times when people just wait until the boat leaves the pier for them to get on. And we are thinking people, we are creative people, we are hardworking people, and therefore this is no time for us to just sit on our laurels and allow something of this, based on what I'm hearing, profitable industry to be taken by other people and we don't get in on it and get our share. It would be good for government revenues, it would be good for employment, it would be good for the science of it, which will expand our people in that particular discipline. And therefore, I am hoping that our government would begin to be sensitized enough that not only they wait until the people come to them, but to attempt to identify certain people who might be able to push this industry upward and onward.
Which country do you know
St.
have
Croix.
profit from it?
What I understood, St. Croix, U.S. Virgin
Well, you
Islands,
say they're starting. I mean, which has profit from it?
from
None of them has profit from anything.
well, I know that
They
there
just talk.
well, I know that there is a company known as
In Jamaica, for instance, they're very concerned about what's going on.
well, Jamaica, of course, went down the path of the illegal.
I don't know about that.
I'm just saying to you, in the past.
No. You're talking about the development of the
But now that
of the industry, medical, whatever it is. You're talking about how profitable it is, and I want you to point to
Africa, I'm
some
just
country where that has become a profitable industry.
Canada.
Or how you know that? I've never seen.
It's on the stock exchange.
Exchange.
Apfria.
Israel.
Apfria is on
I have
the stock exchange, and people are buying the shares of that company.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm saying to you that it's been proven that I'm talking about medically now, not
I'm talking about medically, yeah.
for the abuse of it. And in that regard, based on what I have seen, it is profitable.
You see, that's another illustration of the type of debate, because with that intervention from Ted, it slowed Mr. Stanley.
No, he didn't slow me. I gave him an area where he can go and check.
Yeah, but you heard what I said?
Slowed.
It slowed your progression and the point. Did it not?
Well, sometimes you have to take time to think. And maybe you might call it.
But the point is, it still slowed it because you took time to think, correct?
I have stated my point, and Ted decided he's going to attempt to.
Okay, let me take some
Torpedo
time
it.
here now to get a call. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yes, good evening tonight. Just want to ask a question about the passport. Okay, what if you have a passport with many years on it? You was in a country where you didn't hear that they had a recall in the passport, and now you come home and you go to the right person because you were referred to a special individual to ask about it because they said the year that they had the recall in it was expired. Do you think that you should be responsible to pay for their mistake, and you still have many years on the passport, and he's telling you now that you have to pay all over again and start the process all over again? And it's not fair because many people in different countries who don't even hear about it and know about it because you don't get Nevis news there. You come home and now they're telling you you have to go all over and pay the money all over again. And you have many years on the passport still. It's not fair to us.
That is the point. I mean, because you were given a certain amount of time to change it, and then you wouldn't have to pay anything. They just change it. Now that time is gone.
Yes, but we didn't
And
hear
I think
about
that
it. We didn't hear about it.
I think people should be given another. After the intervention of the minister, I think people ought to be given another period of time in which to resolve the matter.
To who in different countries and you don't hear about it. You have
That's true.
children,
Yeah,
and all your children have their papers, their passports, and now you're saying that you have to start to pay the money all over. You don't have the kind of money to pay for you and all your kids and your whole family all over again.
Yeah.
But it's not our fault.
That's true.
They had years and time, and the time has expired, but
Yeah.
we didn't know about it. We didn't hear about it until we come here. And when we do go to the right person who we were referred to, he is saying that we have to go and pay the money all over again. I don't mind starting the papers over, but it is not fair to us to go back and pay the money all over when the passport is not expired.
I agree.
All right, caller.
So is there a solution that we could...
Caller, what I would suggest to you that I would do, I would raise the matter at a different forum and see if the the minded authorities would be so willing to grant some additional relief, like Mr. Hobson would have indicated. These passports were recalled some time ago, and the time would have expired. And I hear you. I empathize with you. But like I said, what I would do, I would raise the matter at a different forum and see if I can make the case and persuade those who need to be persuaded to at least give some relief, some discount on the processing fee, and I would come back and I would probably make that announcement either yea or nay right here at this microphone.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You know, it's interesting. I think maybe it might be useful to indicate the facts or the situation where that is concerned for the benefit of the listening public. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, you're on the air. Good evening, you're on the air. Good evening, you're on the air. Okay, please call back, caller. Yes, I was saying it perhaps is probably important to reiterate. Okay, maybe we have this caller now. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening to you gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, earlier you all seem to have been going around in circles with the discussion, and I wanted to suggest that the problem you all seem to be having is that the premises are wrong. This idea that global financial regulations are responsible for the inability to attract investment is erroneous. You know, the rules, FATCA and others do not prohibit the movement of capital across borders. They prevent or discourage.
Caller, might I ask you a question for clarification? You said that our premise was wrong?
Well, I did hear.
No, my question is, did you just state that our premise was wrong?
Yes.
And you went on to say the premise was what?
It seems like you all agreed that that it was harder.
You work with me then. You concluded that we all agreed on that?
Well, it pretty much sounded so that you all adopted, I think it was Mr. Stanley.
Okay, that is your conclusion. I cannot fault you for the way you interpret something.
Okay.
But I did not either say that or agree with it.
Oh, you didn't agree with it? Okay.
No, I'm saying I did not either say it or agree with it. So, I just wanted to...
Okay.
You may come to the same conclusion, but I just wanted to make that clear to you based on the conclusion and the statement you made.
Okay, fair enough. Right? But there was this suggestion that, you know, the rules, the regulations were prohibiting the movement of capital across borders. And I was pointing out that it was specifically, those regulations were specifically targeting dirty money, money laundering and the like, okay, and tax avoidance. And nothing is wrong with that, okay? As you pointed out, someone pointed out, please, St. Kitts had been able to attract capital despite these regulations. You pointed out to major projects here in St. Kitts. Okay, these were ironically funded by the much maligned CBI. Okay, St. Kitts in more recent times have not been able to attract major foreign direct investment either. Okay, we are just coasting along pretty much on money that was that the current government met. The second faulty premise, I think, is that is.
Let me ask you this before you go on. You said the second faulty premise. Let me ask you this. Notwithstanding that I corrected what you said, you still are holding on to the view, which I did say that you're free to nonetheless, having been corrected, still hold the same view.
Okay. All
And
right.
I realize that you have chosen to do that, but I just want to make
I
sure.
have heard in assuming
Oh.
that everybody was in agreement, but it was certainly mooted. Okay? You realize that, right?
Yeah, but you went on to say the second one that we think.
Okay, no. The second faulty premise that was mooted on the show.
No,
not
walk with me.
necessarily by everybody.
Yeah, but you see, I'm getting the view that you said the second faulty premise, which means there was a first one.
Well, there was a faulty premise echoed by somebody. I'm not saying, I agree with you that it was not a view shared by all the panelists.
Okay, go on.
What I'm saying is that the term development was not defined. Okay? Sure, development means roads and hospitals, etc. Okay, they are important to development. But ultimately, they add to our recurrent budget without bringing in revenue. Okay? They must be maintained by another type of development. The kind like the Four Seasons, the Brown Hill Communications, entities like that bring in foreign exchange and capital. Okay, that the taxes can pay for the services government delivers. Right? I think the NIA should have been fighting much harder than it has been doing to bring such to Nevis and widen the tax base and provide more employment. Okay, something like geothermal, for instance, that should have been zeroed in on, and certainly by now, there would have been something that would have brought in revenue and probably have some export as well, some power exported as well. I'm at a loss as to why this was not prioritized.
Caller, I could ask you a question?
Yeah.
You were suggesting that Nevis should have, for instance, per example, pursue the geothermal avenue to bring in.
Hello?
Why does nobody want me to?
What?
Let me start again. Caller, could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. You're suggesting that Nevis should have pursued, for example, geothermal in order to get a base to get its development going. Am I in?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, right. And I suppose that there are other avenues that you will have that they could pursue as well.
Well, the main thing is getting in. For instance, another hotel, even one other major hotel.
Right. So that's another avenue.
Can't carry the weight.
Right, and that's another avenue.
Yeah.
Okay. What are the avenues that St. Kitts is using to have its continued development?
Well, the fact is it has its cruise tourism sector. Okay. It has the CBI.
Well, let me ask you this.
Right.
Well, let me ask you.
Let me put this.
No,
to you.
walk with me.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. It was an oversight, or is it that you don't agree that Nevis should use that same CBI to advance its development?
Well, what I was going to say would answer that question if you just bear with me. Right?
So well, how about I make a deal with you. Answer the question, and then you can go into the
CBI should have been allocated to Nevis under some arrangement. Okay? They should have had their allocation. The problem, I think, comes in what that allocation should be. Okay?
So your short answer to my question, I'll allow you to go on with what you want to say. So the short answer to my question is that, yes, Nevis ought to use that same CBI monies for development as well?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Okay, but you are not advancing it as one of the priority ways that Nevis should do it.
No.
Why not?
Well, like I said, if you just bear with me, you'll see why I say that.
So, no, but I'll bear with you because I'll give you the rest of the time, but I just want you, in the interest of time,
Because
just to answer those
not-
short questions.
It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable.
What is
for
not-
St. Kitts, and it's not sustainable for Nevis.
But you agree that St. Kitts is doing very well,
Correct.
primarily as a result of that.
Yes.
But it's not sustainable for St. Kitts, but it should go ahead, but not Nevis.
I just said it's not sustainable for St. Kitts, and it's not sustainable.
But what I'm saying is, it is the main priority and has been for a while. But what I find is that you seem to be suggesting that Nevis should use other things that are still in the pipeline, so to speak, to advance their development, when something that is already out of the pipeline is available.
Okay, let me put it this way. It's certainly, Division certainly can't feel comfortable knowing that Nevis would be dead in the water if not for subventions from St. Kitts. And you and Mr. Brantley could say, well, it's Nevis share as well. You could say that all you
No,
want.
sir, you don't have. No, work with me. Work with me. You don't have to say what I would say. I give you the opportunity to ask me the question. Mr. Brantley, I don't speak for him, but that guy can speak. He can speak for himself tomorrow night. Right? So that statement that you're making there that I could say, I got the authority and I could speak too. So you don't speak on behalf of me.
Who's saying that you don't?
Yeah, but you're implying.
What
You
I'm
you
saying
you
is
are
if
making
you
a
let me
statement
finish-
so that I could.
That's what I'm saying. If you let me finish my statement, you'd understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
Then
to
you
use
can
your
take it
to use your word, you're operating on bad premises. That this caller. I'm going to let you finish, but let me just say, if you were listening to the program from the beginning,
And I
this
was.
is right. This is another example of what I meant when I said the way we debate, can really make a difference in the results that we get. Go ahead.
Of course, right.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
That being said, right, all I'm saying is that if tomorrow Prime Minister Harris says nothing is coming over to Nevis, well, nothing is coming over, and that's that. And I'm saying that you cannot feel comfortable with that colonial type arrangement. That's the bottom line. Okay? And that's where this whole sustainability question comes in, right? It should not be left to the whims and fancies of any individual politician. Okay? And you understand my point?
I understand your point, but I don't agree with it.
Right? Okay.
Because
Do you think
because
that
the governance, work with me, the governance of any place hinges on people, right? Because the harsh reality is also this: the current government, federal government, is a unity government made up of three parties:
Yeah.
PAM, PLP, and CCM. And either one or more of those walk as well, it can fall.
That's true. So and
So
what is the
therefore, presenting what you just present to make your point is fine. That is why, in a good debate, the other side of the story must be put on the table as well.
Of course. But do you? Isn't it a fact what I just said though?
Yes.
If tomorrow, right?
Yeah,
then-
but it is equally a fact what I said
I'm
as
not saying
well.
that there won't be consequences. Of
No,
course there'll be
no,
consequences.
it is equally a fact what I said. So the two must be put on the table, and then people can conclude from that. Caller, thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Stanley.
Well done, sir.
I'm going to move on to the
Thank
terrible
you for that,
accident.
Ted. So you mean that we did so well that Stanley doesn't have anything to add?
I was taken aback upon the disaster that occurred with Kobe Bryant, particularly the aircraft. And I said to myself, how such a terrible thing could occur? The reason why I said that is that when you're at a certain level of economic achievement, life should mean so much to you that you must guard it tooth and nail. Meaning, you see where I am? I get a little scared driving because there's so many vehicles on the road now. Because an accident could happen in the twinkling of an eye. And with that accident, lives could be lost. And therefore, my thinking is that I have to be careful. And as a result, I try to look at various ways that accidents could occur, and also various ways to prevent those kinds of accidents. And at the level at which Kobe has arrived in terms of wealth, there should have been backup systems. But of course, as an individual, his thinking might have been quite different from the way I think as I am existing currently at my age. At age 41, I saw another 25 years ahead of him at the pinnacle of life and all that life has to offer in a good way. And to have learned that this aircraft didn't have a black box, or I do not know exactly how it was equipped, different from an airplane. But again, the emphasis on a good life, you should have had backup systems. Something's going wrong, you're approaching area of fog, turn back. But who made the decisions? Sometimes you can't leave certain decisions totally up to certain people. And in that regard, you have backup systems. Whether you're going to, of course, it's a low-flying aircraft based on design. And in this regard, I just felt that there should have been backup systems, primarily to save the life of not only Kobe, but the other lives that perished in that crash. I felt that terrible mistake made. And as a result, a great has gone, and those who actually were within his circle, within his party, are gone. I'll leave it there with Bobo.
Ted, just by way of information, might be a light moment, but when you were a magistrate, you ever encountered lawyers like Stanley who make their cases in the manner that Edric would make his case?
No, really.
No, not with that kind of logic.
Yeah, because it doesn't have much logic in it. I mean, it's a tragic accident. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what backup could have done. I listened myself, and black box don't go with those kind of things. It wouldn't have made any difference anyway. So I really, it's not convincing. I mean, I understand what Mr. Stanley is doing and saying. I think he feels that somebody with that kind of money and that kind of power shouldn't have an accident. But accident happen all the time. What this teaches me anyway is that anything can happen to anybody anytime. I mean, about 10 days ago, I was walking between Slack's building there, below Mr. Evelyn's place, the drugstore, and I was crossing to go by Bank of Nova Scotia. And as I was passing, this vehicle coming from the waterfront, driven by somebody I know very well, and he came and he threw me halfway across the road. You know? And,
Wow.
At the time when I got the blow, I thought that was the end of me. You know, he didn't stop, and so when this thing has happened to Kobe, I said, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
what it teaches you. I had to go to hospital. I still have a lot of pain. Parts of me are still swollen because I was pitched down, pitched and thrown to the ground, and had to go to hospital and all that. So, you know, it could have been worse, but, you know, these accidents happen, you know, and it doesn't select who the victims are, you know, it happens, you know.
Yeah. Well, we're grateful that Ted, you know, as I normally would like to repeat, as bad as it was, then it could have been worse. So we're still grateful that, you know,
So
yes.
as I said, that is the lesson I took from Kobe, you know, with all his promise and all his things. It happens, you wonder why it happened. I thought to myself, if I'd stayed in the bank 5 more minutes, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but I understand what he means. You know, people, sometimes with all the money in the world, you can't stop something that is supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Well, fate, of course, that is fate.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes. Can I make just one other quick point? Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah. And may I check my premise with you before? Basically, there is this. Is there a prevailing view now that it's only now that Nevis is benefiting from its relationship with St. Kitts? Is that correct to say?
If I don't know if it is correct to say. What I do know is that some of the panelists share the view that they are doing better now, or they are doing the best that they have ever done. Correct, Mr. Brand?
Correct.
Yes. Okay, go ahead, caller.
What I would like to point out is that any foreigner visiting both islands, looking at St. Kitts and Nevis, would not see any difference in the standard of living. As a matter of fact, they would probably say that in Nevis, the standard of living in Nevis is higher than that, appears to be higher than that in St. Kitts.
Quite so.
Better housing stock, more land. Hello?
Quite so.
I agree with you, sir.
Yeah.
I was
right.
going to make that point, you know.
Right.
That the quality of life in Nevis, in spite of all the talk about
Absolutely.
lack of hotel or whatever it is, the quality of life in Nevis is far higher than it is in most of the other Caribbean islands. The quality
Right.
of life.
I would agree, you know, when you look at
And
the
people
index
don't
for human
recognize that they're
development.
small
Yeah.
businesses and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you look around and you know, caller, I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to say this, but about 2 Sundays ago, a gentleman took me for a tour of Nevis, and I couldn't believe the enormous development in this country. It's almost unbelievable. The properties that are going up all over the country. And so when I hear people talk about Nevis this and Nevis that, you know,
And right.
It seemed to
but
be
bear
that
in mind,
all that they are talking about, there is another hotel or something like that.
Right,
They fail to realize that there are a lot of small businesses.
And the point I'm making is that this did not just start, eh? It did not just start. This has been so for some time. Anybody going to Nevis and St. Kitts would come to that conclusion, that the quality of life in Nevis is better than in St. Kitts, okay? And so this idea, because the classic indicator for when a particular segment or a particular island or a particular part of a federation is marginalized is that there is discrimination. There is absolutely no discrimination in St. Kitts against Nevisians. Would you agree with that as well?
Sure, I think we our people move around quite easily.
Yeah, right. Of course, because of its larger landmass and the population size, sure, we have a bigger hospital, more equipped, better equipped hospital. The colleges down here, those, the port facilities, the ANC port facilities are better, yes, okay, but that's a factor of the population size.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so my point, the point I'm making, okay, it is, and like I said, it didn't just happen like 4 years ago, right? This has been so continuously. And the point I'm making is that the problem between our islands are not economic, okay? It's not marginalization. They are political. It's the political and constitutional arrangement between the islands that leave a lot to be desired. And that is what needs fixing. And we keep kicking that can down the road. I don't know why, but we just keep kicking that can down the road, thinking that, these temporary alliances and so on can solve it, when in fact what we need is firm arrangement that regardless to who is in power where, okay, the resource sharing, and Mr. Brantley agreed that it's a problem of resource sharing, The resource sharing...
Caller, in the interest of time, let me ask you this. Give me an example of a firm arrangement that would not cause a problem, would not result in a problem.
That things like, for instance, the CBI, okay, is divided according to population. And that is set in stone. Now, and remember, I think the Constitution...
I said in the interest of time, so what I would like you to do is to be brief and forceful with your answers.
Yeah, I think
right?
the Constitution actually have suggested a resource sharing arrangement.
Well, then,
It was torn up for convenience, and I'm saying...
Caller, walk with me, right? The Constitution has it in already, you said?
It has there is some reference to how the revenue sharing agreement, yeah.
But it is not form is not as firm as you would like it?
I thought so, since it's in the Constitution, but
no,
caller,
I walk with me. You notice what I did, and I always do? I give you enough time so that you can, speak and I can understand what you're saying, right? Okay. Now, you're saying that, as I understand it, that what we need to solve the problems are some firm arrangements.
Right.
Nevertheless, you went on to say that there is a firm arrangement such as the one you're suggesting is already in the Constitution. No, walk with me. Walk with me. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, a firm arrangement that is already in the Constitution, but you think that a firm arrangement will solve the problem. Where would you put that firm arrangement? Where would you write it?
Well, no, I would, you see, that could have been challenged,
No, just walk with me. You said that you think in order to solve that problem, there should be a firm arrangement.
Yes.
Nevertheless, you went on to say that there is a firm arrangement of the sort that you're speaking about already in the Constitution. You agreed with that?
Yes.
Right.
Mr.
No,
Foster,
work with
confirm that.
no, work with me. I'm just stating things. We're stating things was stated.
But Mr. Hudson can confirm that. I'm saying, just confirm it with him.
Yeah, but
you see, it's simple. It's from my recollection, it was in the Constitution.
Okay, let me just bring in something here, right? In my class and every class, there was always a person who write the longest. You agree with that?
Yeah.
But he doesn't really always get the highest mark.
True.
Okay. Now, so let me just finish what I was asking you. So, you think I should go over it again, Naya?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. You said that the problem with St. Kitts and Nevis, there need to be some firm arrangements.
Yes.
And an example of the firm arrangement that you were speaking about already exists in the Constitution.
Yes.
My question is, the firm arrangement that you will have, therefore, of the same type, which is already written in the Constitution, where will you put that? Where will you write yours?
I would put it in the Constitution, you know.
As well, okay.
The Constitution has loopholes. I don't think there are loopholes. There are.
I like moment. Ted, how am I doing?
Doing well.
There are obvious loopholes in the Constitution that permit this to happen. It's just a matter of putting in the necessary amendments to prevent it from happening. Mr. Hobson, how am I doing?
Not very well.
Caller, thank you very much.
I tell you something.
Thank you very much, caller. Ted, let me just take this and then come back to you. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Webbo. I am listening to your program, and one of the things that keeps coming to my mind, we hear about the revenue sharing and getting the fair share. How do we know that the fair share is not happening, since we've never seen the numbers especially from the CBI program? Do you know where those numbers are, Webbo? And can you direct us? I mean, this is talk that gets results.
Well,
get some tonight.
Yeah, the way I will do that is simply this. The persons who argue that a person is getting a fair share or non-fair share, the question should really be directed at them. That's not a fair view? In other words, if Mr. Brantley says, if the Premier says that we are yet to get our fair share, I would imagine he must have a basis for saying it. So then I would say to Mr. Brantley, if I wanted to seek the information such as you, I'd say, well, Mr. Brantley, how far away are you from reaching your fair share? And then if he has his numbers, then he would say, well, my fair share should be 20, and right now I'm at 10. No?
You know what? Thanks for that advice, but I am left with the impression that I don't think the people who know that information wants to share it.
So you don't think Mr. Brantley wants to share it?
Well, I've never heard that information being shared from any of the sides. And so that...
So you haven't heard anybody say it?
Have you?
No, I mean, the point that you're making, you have heard the sides say that Nevis is not getting its fair share. Is that what you're saying?
I've heard Nevis doesn't get its fair share. My question is, how do we know that's not happening since we don't know what the numbers are?
Well, that is what I'm saying. I'm saying that...
How do we get to finding out, though?
But I just said it.
Numbers are.
I just said it. If Mr. Brantley as an example, and I use Mr. Brantley's name simply and mainly because he seems to be a fellow who understands the debate and he wouldn't take it personal.
Well,
right? So, if he argues that...
Personal, though, Webbo, we just need to know
what the numbers are.
But I just caller, so I'm trying to help you genuinely to get some results from your inquiry. If Mr. Brantley says it, and I know you have courage.
Let me just stop right here. I would not ask Mr. Brantley because, in all fairness to Mr. Brantley, those CBI things are done in St. Kitts. I don't recall ever hearing that information from him. So perhaps he doesn't know either. Is that office releasing the information? How do we find? That's what I'm asking myself. How do we find out? Is there an office that we can go to? Maybe we won't hear it publicly, but is there some place that we can go and find out? What are the numbers?
Well, let me ask you this. If Mr. Hobson says, of the CBI monies, Nevis is not getting a fair share, you don't think it is a fair question to ask Mr. Hobson, well, what does Nevis get and what would you constitute to be a fair share?
Well, if that opportunity presented itself, I certainly would ask.
Okay.
Based on the statement that he made.
But
again, the question is, though, Webber, let me ask you, have you ever heard what the numbers are from the CBI program? Like right now, do any of us have any idea how many citizens we have?
I do not know. Well, I'm trying to answer your question, and after this, I got to go to the next caller. I have heard the Prime Minister Harris mention some figures before. I cannot really tell you exactly when at this point or how much, but I know he has given reports before. But I got to go. Okay.
Okay, Weber.
All right. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hello. Good evening, Weber.
Yes.
I think in the report of the Director of Audit, there's an indication as to the amount of revenue the federal government earned from the CBI in government fees. I think it was $200-something million. I don't remember the exact number, but it is in the document.
Yes.
So, and that is an official document. So that number is a number that can be worked with.
Right, yes.
Now, if it is that $250 million, remember, apart from the revenue sharing, and I heard a little exchange with you and the caller, which didn't resolve much, you have the Charlestown Accord, which stipulates a sharing and a formula for the sharing of that money. And based on my information, which I would admit is not complete or may not be complete, from my information, the Nevis Island administration is not getting the agreed portion that it should be getting. From that, if you look at the numbers in the Director of Audit report, is not. Now,
right.
I would agree with the lady. She suggested that it is possible that Mr. Brantley might not have all the information in terms of the details of the Citizenship by Investment Program. And I would not be surprised if not only he doesn't have all the details, but none of the ministers other than the Prime Minister himself, because it seems as though it is fashionable for Prime Ministers to keep these things to themselves. But insofar as money for the revenue for that is concerned, I think the information is contained in the report of the Director of Audit.
Okay, caller, thank you very much. And what I can extrapolate from basically what you said is basically the argument that I was putting forth, so that if as you said, we may not have the exact figure, but if we say, okay, it's around 200, 250, and then Nevis got so far 10 or 20, then you say, well, it needs another, 30 or 40, and so on. So that's what I was saying.
Correct, you're right.
Yes. All right, caller, thank you very much.
Good luck.
Yes. Ted, you want the last word? Because I promised to come back to you.
No, I'm all right.
Okay, let's give it to Edric, who will not say no.
Oh, well, Weber, all I can repeat is that we have these two little islands, and as the gentleman called from St. Kitts, mentioning the barometer by which things are measured, that we in Nevis are doing very well, and these two islands today, they were awesomely beautiful. Praise the Lord.
The last word from Edric W. Stanley. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. You all have a wonderful evening.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers. With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean.